and good morning. I'm very grateful to Bishop Jackson for this opportunity to announce that there still exists a threat to this republic from the ideology of Marx and Lenin. I'm talking about communism and socialism. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, these ideologies were supposed to be obsolete, history. But it was a history that the free world never fully exposed and judged to be evil, not on a par with its exposure and judgment of Nazism. In 2013, I published a book called American Betrayal, which examines the reasons why. In part, we flinched as a result of the great success of the communist infiltration of American institutions of power and influence, which we should recognize helped establish the bureaucracies of what we call the deep state today. There was and remains an institutional reluctance to know the truth about communism, especially because communist crimes depended on Western complicity. The covert communist infiltration of the federal government revved up during the President Franklin Roosevelt's administrations. Expert estimates now tally the number of Americans assisting Soviet intelligence agencies during the 1930s and 40s as exceeding 500. Not one Aldrich Ames, not two Rosenbergs, more than 500 Americans loyal to Stalin, and who knows how many loyal to the anti-American agenda of international socialism. This was a national security fiasco of a magnitude that has never entered national comprehension. Today, we are in the throes of another national security fiasco as we learn about cells inside the US government that have attempted to overturn the 2016 election and destroy the presidency of Donald Trump. What does one have to do with the other? I am here to inform you that the red thread of Marxist influence links these two fiascos into a continuing crisis. I recently published a short book called The Red Thread, A Search for Ideological Drivers Inside the Anti-Trump Conspiracy, to lay out some of the facts. Here are a few. Consider Nellie Orr, a Russian expert, former professor and CIA contractor at Fusion GPS, the shop that produced the DNC and Clinton campaign document known as the Steele dossier. I learned by reading Nellie Orr's own writings that she harbors a kind of nostalgia for the Stalin era. In academic book reviews, Nellie Orr discusses her frustration in conveying to students, quote, the terror and excitement of the Stalin era. Excitement. She also talks about, quote, the agonizing paradoxes of the Stalinist state. Let me read one line from one of her reviews. This is Nellie Orr. One must commend this book's attempt to account for the agonizing paradoxes of the Stalinist state, one which was building a legal structure, yet tortured and executed innocent civilians. Oh, those agonizing paradoxes. From Nellie Orr, Stalin nostalgist, I will turn to Orr's Fusion GPS colleague, Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence officer. He was described as a confirmed socialist while at Cambridge in the 1980s with some undetermined association with the Marxist-influenced campaign for nuclear disarmament. Also in the 1980s, we have former FBI Director James Comey and College of William and Mary. There, as Comey himself has said, he was a communist. While a communist college student, Comey developed his lifelong affinity for Reinhold Niebuhr, the theologian who was once well known for pro-Soviet militant socialist activism. To add to this rosy red picture, at around the same time, up the road in Langley, Virginia, we have John Brennan beginning his career at the CIA. Brennan told an audience in 2016 that in 1976, the candidate he voted for President of the United States was the Soviet Union's man in America, Communist Party leader Gus Hall. He also said he told the CIA this and was hired anyway, which says a lot about the recklessness of our intelligence community going back at least 40 years. This is just a little bit of the red thread of ideology running through the anti-Trump conspiracy. Americans have long been conditioned to ignore these ideological threats within, but we ignore them at our unimagined peril. Thank you very much.